I'm George and this is George Made This. Today what we're going to do is turn these chunks of wood into a guitar wall hanger. What you've just seen me do is cut a piece of wood up and plane it down. Now the only problem with my planer is that the blades are buggered. So it was leaving horrible grooves, it was absolutely tearing the wood up. So what I've just done is just gone over it with the belt sander. They're not going to be perfectly flat, but they'll be flat enough for me to laminate now, ready for carving in a bit. That'll probably do it. Now I've just got to wait for that to dry. Okay, so I definitely put the bandsaw through its paces, but I've got a pretty good rough shape. I've made that groove a little bit deeper in the middle, just so it looks a bit more like a hand. And I've sort of made some rough cuts so that I can start chipping away at some of this, but I'm gonna have to use a handsaw. Then I can get some more of the rough shape done. I'm happy with the start. It's got a nice big base, so that'll be good for mounting it on a wall. Okay, so just an idea, because this is gonna be a bit of a pain to hold and carve. I've just cut a little scrap of plywood, so I'm going to attach the hand to that. That way I can at least put it in a vise so I can do more of the shaping like that. And I can also clamp it down to the bench and use tools on it like I need to now. There you go. So I've got it this far. I've just taken off a bit more of that thickness there at the bandsaw. So I think what I'm going to do is trace on an outline of my fingers and go from there, and then I can start figuring out where I can cut away in here to get the separation in the fingers, and then the same on here, because there's no way I need that much material, so I can cut away a load more there. Now that, I have to say I'm pretty happy with. I've probably used a lot of the tools that I've used wrong, but it doesn't matter because I've made it this far. Next step will be to get the Dremel out and start doing some actual shaping. So I've just been back to the bandsaw. I think I was a little bit too wary about how much material I left on here, and with the tools that I've got, it's just going to make it too much of a hassle. I've taken off a lot more weight than getting it closer to what my hands look like. So now I've just got to do a bit more shaping. I'm going to try and round off these fingers a bit. I can fill that in later, that's not an issue. I'll go back to the Dremel, round off some of these fingers, and then hopefully we'll get it looking a bit closer to a hand. Before I do anything, I'm going to measure with the guitar. I've just marked 2 marks on each side where it tends to want to sit when it's going to hang, the angle that it's going to hang at. So I'm just going to carve in some grooves
The good thing is the drum sander that I'm using will probably, is about the right width, so that shouldn't be too difficult. So I think that's probably about as much as I can do with the Dremel at this point. Most of the shaping is done. I've got that form, it fits the guitar pretty well. So I think I'm gonna have to move on to hand sanding and just round off these fingers so they look a bit more like fingers. I think the thumb I'm pretty happy with. I'm happy with the shape. So it's just these 4 fingers next. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find that bit of plywood I had earlier that I was screwing this onto so I could clamp it down. And I will get some sandpaper and show a little trick that I learned from Alex Steele. Okay, so that trick I was talking about, I've seen Alex Steele and Will Stelter use it quite a lot. And it's quite a handy little tip. What you do is cut off a piece of sandpaper, carve it as well. Get some duct tape, doesn't have to be bright orange. And what that does is just strengthens that piece of paper for when you are shoe shining a piece of material. So hopefully, if I do this, round that corner off ever so sweetly. And we'll make the finger look more like a finger. I think I'm going to leave this at this with regards to the sanding. I think if I try and go more realistic with it, I think I'm going to ruin it. So it's probably a good point to call it. Just a couple of things I do need to do. This line here marks where I need to cut. So what I need to do is cut from this edge down to this corner, so then that way when it's sat on the wall it will sit up at a slight angle and will keep the guitar in place. Then after that I will give it a coat of finish. Only other thing to do after that would be to put some leather in there and along the sides, just so that it doesn't harm the guitar when it's in there. Okay, while that starts to dry, all I've done is I've just cut a little strip of leather just to protect the guitar when it sits in like that. And then I've cut another piece that's a bit weird shaped, but what I'm going to do is just glue it above that screw hole there, and then the rest will just lay flat, but it will still protect the back of the neck from the wood. That's about it. I was going to use my impact cement, but that looks a bit like that. So I'm hoping just the spray contact adhesive will do the trick. It should do, I don't see why it should be a problem. But once that's dry and this is applied, we'll go hang it and put the guitar on it. One guitar holder.